it appears to be trending that way in terms of what is out there on the internet. In the building, I don't actually know. The fights that I've heard rumored are different than that, but that doesn't mean that's not happening.
Welcome back to the Bohnfire podcast, where we talk about the UFC and mixed martial arts with those closest to the fight game. I am your host, longtime MMA reporter and MMA junkie senior reporter, Mike Bohn. Hope everyone out there is doing well. We are back with another show. I'm sorry I've been lacking in the past few weeks here. There's been a lot going on. As you can see, different office setup than previously. Moving into our new place, there's been a lot of stuff going on, things to figure out. So I took a little time away just to get myself settled and sorted. But here today to make it up to you guys, the lack of shows here. And we have a good one. It is UFC 326 fight week. Of course, the BMF title on the line on Saturday in the main event. Those two guys back there will be running it back a little more than 10 years later. Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira for the BMF title. Some other bouts of note on that card, and a whole lot else going on in the sport. So we are going to go through it all today. First up, we are going to have my good friend and media colleague, Oscar Willis of the Mac Life, to make some last-minute predictions for the UFC White House announcements. Dana White claiming it is all going to come this week. We will know the card, and me and Oscar are going to take our best guesses of what this lineup will look like. Some fights that could happen, some fights we're ruling out, and just kind of go through that a little bit. Then we are going to be joined by the former two-division UFC champion, Olympic gold medalist, Henry Cejudo, to talk a little bit about his win over Urijah Faber at RAF 06, his upcoming rematch of sorts with Merab Dvalishvili at RAF 08, and just a little bit about what RAF is doing. I think they have really made a nice impact in a short span, some entertainment, some good viral clips, all the stuff we will talk to Henry about, get his thoughts on some MMA news, as well as the UFC 326 main event between Holloway and Oliveira. And then finally, on the back end of the program, UFC reporter Megan Olivi is back to celebrate her new UFC contract. She recently announced to have been signed a multi-year agreement to stay in her role with UFC. We will talk about how that got done, what she expects, the duties, all that different stuff. And then, of course, a deeper preview of Holloway versus Oliveira with Megan. So that was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed the show today. Hope you all enjoyed as well. Please like, rate, subscribe, follow. All that different stuff means a lot as we build the program. That does enough for me in the intro here. A lot to get to through the show. So enjoy, stay tuned, and I will be back on the other side of the break to kick things off. Back here on the Bohnfire with some wide eyes in anticipation of the UFC White House announcements. It is Oscar Willis. Oscar, I had to have you on first here because these announcements could come at any point. Maybe they're happening as we speak. Dana White said this week. I don't know when it's going to be at some point, but how are you, man?
Well, we get a 12-hour pre-announcement of the announcement, so we should have at least a little bit of notice, but I'm good. Roaring ready for a big fight week here in Las Vegas.
Yes, of course. When do you think is most likely that we get this? Like, do they put it on the broadcast on Saturday, which would probably make the most sense, maybe during the CBS window, the main card and the prelims, or are we just actually going to get a Dana White IG Live?
I think, well, that's the question, right? You said what makes the most sense doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're going to do, right? So obviously, we know the UFC are very, very big on making the announcements, not letting the reports get there first. So maybe as soon as it's done, Dana does just go live with it. If you recall the UFC 300 main event, which was the last big one, they went live and announced that on his way to the press conference. Maybe it could be a similar thing to that. The CBS broadcast would make the most sense, of course. But then I think we spoke about it a little bit, like, you could maybe fly these guys here, right, and do a surprise appearance at the fights, a surprise appearance anywhere. So it depends how they're planning on announcing it, basically. There's lots of good ways to announce it. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the way they will, but I'm with you. I think the CBS portion would probably be the best thing.
Yeah, hopefully they do that. We will see how it goes. Okay, so we tasked each other with writing out a few predictions of fights we think will be on this card. I tried to keep it as realistic as possible. I think we did like 3 or so each, but we'll just go through it. We have written down here. I guess first prediction.
I didn't
though.
write any down. I forgot. But
okay, well, you have them written down in your mind. It's all good.
Sure.
First prediction though. How many title fights do you think we're going to get on this thing? Interim, undisputed, BMF, or otherwise? How many fights are going to be labeled championships of sorts?
One, if that.
One. Wow.
I think because
Really?
I don't know if you want to get into your predictions first, but do you want my line of thinking?
Yeah, sure. No, give us the line of thinking.
My main prediction is the obvious one is John and Pereira, right? And I believe if they do that, that will not be for an interim title or a heavyweight title. I think that'll be based on like the star power that is, because then, right, you get a freebie with Pereira getting an interim shot after that, you know? So you don't burn 2 big heavyweight fights for Pereira at once. So if they do that, then you'd think, okay, so maybe co-main, they do a title. So that's when I say 1. I think there could be another title. I would say 2, but I just don't believe Kayla is going to be ready. Otherwise, I think that would be a sure thing. But we haven't heard a fucking peep out of that. And if they're booking the card this far in advance, they're not going to be able to commit to her being on it if she's not ready, right? So that's why I think you might only just get the 1.
Wow. Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. But I think the big question there is like what you said around Jones versus Pereira, which I think I guess we can both trot out as something that was probably number 1 on our lists or mental lists. The thing that you said though about no title is what I find the most interesting, because if you're trying to get Pereira to be this 3-division champion, like you got to put the undisputed belt on the line. But
I just think but I just think. One, I don't know. I don't think they would strip Aspinall, because then you're adding a negative narrative to what they want. They want this card to be a universal celebration, right? They want this to be the biggest home run where no one says anything bad about it. If you strip Aspinall, John and Alex then have to field questions. Dana has to field questions about stripping Tom Aspinall, right? I don't think they want any element of negative narrative to the fight. So I think they would probably skip that. You could do interim, but I would imagine this opportunity is coming to John rather begrudgingly from the UFC. You know, I feel like it's probably because a lot of other deals didn't work out. They felt like they had a good fight and it wasn't quite good enough. So I don't think like giving John the spot in the White House is like something they had always planned to do. I'm sure there was a period where Dana was being honest. So if he gets that, I don't think they're also going to let him fuck off with the title again. You know what I mean? So I feel like you do Alex John and you say to Alex, like, you get an interim title fight after this, win or lose, but the reward is you get to fight John Jones, you know? And I think Alex will take that over an interim title shot, in my opinion.
How confident are we that they can get a deal with John Jones done? I think that's the big question mark. Like, are we feeling good about this, better than ever before?
Listen, the confidence changes every day, right? Like, so it feels like there's momentum towards that right now. But it also feels like more than ever before in UFC history, they pivot when they need to, you know? So I'm sure I feel, when we do our predictions, I feel like there's probably 4 or 5 different options on the table for the White House, of varying degrees of obviously size. But I feel like depending on how this negotiation goes, they'll go to this guy and so on and so forth. And they're trying to basically find the best deal for that card is my guess.
So as I wrote these down, I tried to format as realistic as possible, which means probably an American, at least in every fight, right? Like I know there's chatter out there after what Ali Abdelaziz tweeted about Islam. Yeah. Like, are they going to do the Ilya fight? But I just can't see Russia versus Spain occupying a spot on this card. So the way I structured my predictions here was, an American every fight. And the next one I had here was Ilya Topuria versus Justin Gaethje, which feels like the next obvious fight. All signs have been pointing to it, but we just saw Justin Gaethje do that stream with Neon. He said if he's speaking the truth, he has not, been approached or told anything, but it's his expectation. Ilya tweeting big news coming. What do you think? Was this on your list as well?
Yeah, so this, if they did John and Alex, then the one title fight I was referring to would be this one. I think this would be the co-main event. I do believe this one makes the most logical sense for the theme of it all. You know what I mean? No disrespect here, but I think this would have been the main event if they had a decent amount of confidence that Gaethje was going to win it. I think the image of a guy knocked out the American knocked out on the White House lawn is not how they want to go off air on that show, would be my guess. So I think they want a title fight on there. This is a big fight. It is strange that Justin says he's not been approached, but then I could also see a world where they're like, motherfucker, you want on the White House, you're going to take what you get. You know what I mean? But yeah, this to me is like the next logical one. It is curious with Ali saying big news and Ilya saying big news. You never really know, but then you never know how much people are just sort of posturing online. But for me, this would be the co-main.
Okay. And what's your next one that you thought about?
That's a good question. Well, I did sort of think, well, after Ali's tweet, I was like, would they put Islam and Usman on it? But I think you're right. I don't think you're going to get a lot of Russians, or I'm going to be quite frank, Muslims at this point in the world's social sphere. You know what I mean? I think it's a bit of a rough time for that. So I believe Colby Covington, Bo Nickel. I reckon they will do that.
Okay, yeah, I felt decent about that one too. I know Bo Nickel's, I've been tweeting about it a lot, hinting it was done, and then now saying like Colby's running scared. So who knows? I know Colby told Mike Heck of MMA Fighting, if that was the fight they offered him, he'll take it. So
I think that's the fight, because I think again, I'm trying to think of like Donald Trump's mentality. Basically, I think like two good American boys going at it is probably like in their mind a face versus face fight. I'm sure that's probably quite fun. Both of them love Donald Trump. I'm sure I could see that being like a good sell to him, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Okay, on my list, I had Kayla versus Amanda. We kind of touched on that. I'm not feeling very good about that either. So if you had to have a women's title fight with an American champion, I guess that leaves you Mackenzie Dern, who, despite all the confusion, she is actually American born. Do you do her versus Zhang Weili on this card, or no?
No, I don't think so. Because again, right, like I'm not going to say they're ever going to feather the nest to try and like get one person to win, but you don't want I don't think you want to book a fight that's like, well, especially two, right? If you do Ilya and Justin, you don't want to book another one where your American champions potentially going to get fucking toasted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think this is really not like, I haven't even I know I was sitting there. Did Rose win her last fight? No,
she lost to Natalia Silva. It was a close decision.
That's right. I remember that. Yes. Yeah, I don't know. They obviously will want to get a women's fight on there. I just don't really know like who jumps off the page, really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's not Kayla or Mackenzie, I mean, you could go a different route with Mackenzie Dern and do her versus
Mackenzie's a tough one as well, right? Okay, she's American born, but obviously with the accent and stuff, and I'm not even trying to meme her. Like, what do you like? Fuck, she's at a press conference with Trump and she starts speaking, and he's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
bust out the American accent. It's okay. She can.
Yeah, that would be incredible play at this point of her career to do that. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't really like. There's a couple of. Like, I'm going to just be really fucking mean now. There's a couple of, like, women who do the American thing, like Miranda Maverick and stuff like that. It's just, like, none of them are big names yet, you know? No. Macy Barber, she's the sort of girl they'd throw on there.
Yeah.
Dating a Mexican, though.
Scheduled, so we'll see how that goes for her, if she can turn around. But some other ones I had on there, Gable Steveson versus Derek Lewis.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to happen. I'm going to put that in my flag. That's probably going to happen.
Yeah, do you think, like, how do you feel about the Gable Steveson to UFC thing? I mean, you're putting him in there with the guy with the most knockouts in this division, second most fights ever, second most wins ever. Like, this would be, I think, probably the biggest disparity in this division of, like, experience.
Yeah, well, certainly, experience, because Derek's... But I think it's so hard not to sound just like you're being a contrarian or being like super shitty. I think Gable Stevenson's ceiling is incredibly high. I think like people are getting a little bit over fucking excited about it. You know, like, you know, just in terms of like, I know the heavyweight division is shit and I know all this and stuff like that, but like, you know, there is a thing as experience, and this guy is incredibly green and incredibly raw, and there's other X factors in MMA that people don't really take into account. Like, you know, there is such a thing as like facing adversity for the first time and feeling tired, or realizing you're hitting a guy and they're not going away, and mentally what that does to you. So I think like if they booked that fight, I think Derek should be the favorite, really. But I could see, having said that, Derek's last performance was so subpar that maybe it's just the perfect opportunity. But I just don't know. It's a big ask. But if he fought smart, he has the route to win, and I think it would be a massive step up for him, a massive like launching pad into the UFC. I just don't know, like, if that's the stratosphere they want to put him in that soon.
Yeah, and there's no turning back. I mean, you beat Derek Lewis, you're top 10. So, and Derek knows how to do this fight. I mean, Curtis Blades, look what happened in there.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like, that would be a tough way for Gable Steveson to get an introduction, but that was also, a 5 years old version of Derek Lewis, and he's clearly not that guy anymore. So we'll see what he can do. Another one I had here was USA versus USA, Sean O'Malley versus Corey Sandhagen. Like, I don't know if you're trying to fill out the card, if it ends up being 7 fights and 3 of them are non-title, I don't know.
Maybe. O'Malley seems like the logical choice to be on the card. I just don't get you get a sense for like momentum and a sense for where people are at, and I don't get the sense Sean's been approached. Certainly, he's coming across as a man who's not been fucking contacted, and he's not really a guy who keeps it privately. Like, I think he'd give you a hint, So I would have thought he was a sure thing as well, but it doesn't seem like he's been contacted about it. So that would be a great fight. I also get the impression that O'Malley really just wants Petey Yan, but again, Petey Yan's injured too. How can you book these guys if they're currently injured?
Yeah, and Merab seemingly getting the fight first. So what's Sean O'Malley gonna do? Sit out till December or January? Like, that's kind of ridiculous to do in your prime. Yeah. But sure, buddy. The other matchup I had made here before I go into another fun thing was Michael Chandler, who seemingly thinks he's gonna be on the card, versus King Green. I like the King Green call out. I thought it made sense. That would be a fun fight between 2 veterans. They're gonna scrap. I think King Green is exactly, if he shows up in the form that he did in Mexico City, the hands down, the taunting, the talking, like, that's a guy that can create some entertainment to kick off the main card.
For sure, but I also think about like what people might say on the microphone and what they're prepared to let people say on the microphone. Do we trust Bobby with a live mic on the White House? You know what I mean? By the way, I love King Green, but I could imagine that playing like, dude, what if he gets up there? He's like, legalize marijuana or something like that. I could see them being a bit sort of thing.
I mean, of all the potential things, if him saying that would be pretty okay. Trump would be like, isn't he the one backing that whole movement of fully legalizing it?
I don't know. Who knows, bro? But I think I'll be biased and I'll say Chandler Dan Hooker. Dan called him out after his last fight. He's gay now, obviously, so everyone's excited about that. But I think I think Dan and Michael is like another fireworks fight. Both play the game like in the build up and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? I believe Chandler should be on the card because they took away the thing, right? So they took away the thing. So I feel like he needs some sort of payback, which even I think this is not still good enough, but I think he deserves to be on the card. He's about as American as you can fucking get anyway. So yeah, put him on there.
Exactly. Okay. I wrote down some names here. I don't have matchups, but these all have had some sort of political or Trump tie in recent years. So what do you think you can say likely or unlikely of these names if you think they appear? Steve Garcia, who Charlie Kirk fan, his best friend apparently. Remember that? Remember he said that after the fight that he met him at something in New Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he'll be on the card.
Okay. All-time UFC fights leader and true American patriot, Jim Miller.
That's a good one. I don't think he'll get on it, but he should be. I like Jim Miller on that, but I don't think he will get on it.
Bryce Mitchell.
Definitely not.
No Bryce Mitchell. Okay.
No, unfortunately not. That would be that's the CBS portion right there. You put that on CBS.
Juliana Pena.
Nah.
Kevin Holland, who jumped the fence and shook Mr. Trump's hand out.
I could see Kevin getting on it. They do love a bit of Kev. I could see Kevin getting on it.
Yeah. And then the last name we have to mention, of course, elephant in the room-ish, Conor McGregor did say in an interview with a teenage girl, I don't know what that was. I don't know who that person is, but said he's in negotiations. I know the reporting's been out there from Ariel Helwani. You've talked about it. I've talked about it. Like, it does not seem like Conor McGregor on the White House is the target at this point for many payment, sponsorship, all these reasons. But he did say in that interview, I'm in negotiations, and he did mention the White House. So at least in his mind, maybe this is still an option.
I think it's probably still an option. As I said at the beginning of this, like they probably have 6 fights, right, that they're bouncing from one to the other until they can get a deal that they're satisfied with. I do believe, like Ariel's reported, they just want a gate, you know, like at this point with inflation, with everything, like you can probably get $25 million off a Conor fight, you know? And it's just, they're just never going to pass up $25 million, you know, they're not, so especially if they're already losing money on the event, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that July 11th card is probably where if they can come to a deal, he'll come back on. I don't know against who at this point, but like yeah, I don't believe he'll be at the White House. But I'm very hopeful. I fucking would love him to come back, obviously. But I just think like the economics of it are too tough to make work for them, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Who would, if he does do the July one, who do you think makes sense?
I mean, like at this point, I'm just all in on the Diaz trilogy. I think like it's just, I don't know. The Prates rumor sort of showed where their mentality might be at with booking Conor, but then the fact they moved on from that, maybe they didn't like the reaction they got for that fight or something like that. Maybe they just couldn't come to terms with Conor on that or whatever. But I want the Diaz trilogy, and failing that, I know Ariel said this as well, but it's the most logical thing. Just do the BMF, you know, him versus Max or Charles for the BMF. I think is like, I think that works. I think people would be okay with it. And I think it's like, what's the BMF if not just here's a fun one, you know? And I think at this point, Conor should just be in fun ones. And then I think you give Conor the incentive for being a 3 title holder. So especially like if, let's say they did John Alex and it's not for a belt, Conor would be the first opportunity to have 3 titles, right? And I imagine that's the sort of thing he would salivate over.
Yeah, BMF doesn't count though. Sorry.
No, well, you try and tell that to him. You tell him that.
I think that all makes sense. I wonder if they're willing to bring back Nate Diaz at this point. I think there is a sour taste.
It's never felt like there's been any momentum on their side for that, which I think sucks. I would love to see him back, but
it's like if they're not going to take Ronda Rousey back, why are they taking Nate Diaz back?
I mean, unless you could argue like maybe seeing the Floyd and Manny stuff, which I'm now less confident is going to happen, but like maybe seeing that, maybe seeing Ronda and Gina and the reaction it gets, maybe they're like, fuck, maybe it's not such a big deal if we bring someone back. It's just I think Mark Shapiro said on their earnings call, they have like an earmarked amount of profit they want to make this year, and that's like locked in for their shareholders. And I don't think they're ever going to go past that. And that's pretty much what you're fighting against there.
Yeah, it's tricky. I guess what would be if the BMF scenario doesn't play out? We'll talk about that in a few minutes. What would be the more appealing fight? Is it Max Holloway, on this lightweight resurgence and the rematch, 14 years later or whatever it would be? Or is it Charles Oliveira, who is the fresh opponent and is being
for Conor?
Yeah, for Conor.
I probably would prefer the Charles fight because I think it would be a better fight. I think it would be I think it would be like a much more electric fight. I think Charles is reckless. Conor's very, very aggressive. I think Max could be a lot more technical. And, I think Conor Charles is like a 1-round explosion. And I like that, Conor had the Brazilian mouthpiece when he fought Dustin the 3rd time. Like the intention, like Conor's always wanted to revisit the Brazil rivalry that he had with Aldo. He's always wanted to do that. So I like that fight. And I think Charles and Conor just... that's not to say Conor and Max is not amazing. Of course it is. But like Conor and Charles, it's just something like they both have aura. You know what I mean? Like I can see them like facing off, being like a really electric face off and stuff like that. And I think that would be like just a cool matchup, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be a good direction to go, and makes more sense because I don't think there's as much appeal to see, Charles move into a title fight as there would be if Max wins this fight.
Yeah.
A little more momentum there. Okay, let's just talk about this for a few minutes before I get you out of here. Like, what are you hoping, I guess, to learn out of this fight week between Max and Charles? You guys have done it so many times. The most combined wins in a UFC fight with 47 between these two. We've seen it, everything these guys have to offer. So what are your, I guess, expectations for this fight week?
I'm expecting a very muted fight week, if I'm honest, because as you said, like these guys, and you're actually starting to see this a lot with the the guys who've been around, like Gaethje's the same. Gaethje just said on that stream yesterday, like, I don't trash talk anymore because why am I trying to motivate the other guy? Like, these guys have now been around and done it so many times that it's like,
and there's not the pay-per-view motivator anymore too.
yeah,
Like, talk some
but
crazy
it's also
shit
just
yourself.
that they're clocking in, right? They've done media day. It's not exciting. They've done press conferences. It's all like they've just done this. So I'm expecting a very muted press conference. I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to ask Max about this tomorrow. Like, I feel like such is the way content is produced today, and like just the sheer amount of it, like his own point down is being watered down because people are asking about it so much. Like, it's just like every interview I see, it's like, what about the point down? I'm going to ask him, like, does any part of you feel like retiring it? Like, you did it to be cool and different, and now everyone's fucking doing it. Do you feel like, well, you guys have ruined it, I want to try something else?
Mm-hmm.
I'll word it a bit better than that. But other than that, I really don't think, like, we're not going to get any brain busting quotes out of the two of them, and I don't blame them. Like, it's this fight is one of those where the build up will be muted, but the fight itself will be a massive draw.
Yeah, who do you think wins? How do you see this going?
I think Max probably wins. I think Max wins. I was very bold on that prediction when they first booked it. I didn't think it would be a close fight. As it's sort of coming closer to it, I think maybe you could argue like Charles is much more game than you realize if he fights smart. If he comes out and like zombies towards Max, he's not fast enough to catch him, you know? So that would be the worst thing he could do. But I think Charles is much more in the fight than people realize, especially after that Gamrot performance and things like that. So I am leaning Max, but I think Charles is probably going to be a bit more. It wouldn't surprise me if Max was in trouble a couple of times, like similar to the Poirier fight, where like maybe Charles gets his back for a bit and it's like, oh shit, you know, like bits like that.
Yeah, should be interesting. I'm curious to see. It feels like a coin toss at this point, and I'm curious to see how their demeanors look on fight week and stuff. But we'll be all out there. I'll fly out Wednesday morning, and then we have media day Wednesday, press conference Thursday.
Mike. You can fly out tomorrow. That's when
yes. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I'm just trying to not fully date the podcast here, but thanks for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be seeing.
Well, don't you have to put it out today?
I am putting it out today, but
what are you talking about? Come on.
Okay. Anyways, we'll let you go, Oscar. Thank you so much for the time. Follow his coverage on the Mac Life, and yeah, we'll see you at Media Day, Oscar. Can't wait. 14 people. It's going to be incredible.
Oh my God, I'm in there for 8 hours.
Back here on the Bohnfire with one of our favorites, Mr. Triple C, Henry Cejudo, coming off a big win at RAF 06. Henry, back on the wrestling mats. Man, we're going to talk a little bit about that, some UFC news, but how are things? How are you doing?
Man, everything is good. Everything is good. The weather's beautiful out here. I'm in Phoenix right now. And I'm not sure where you're at, Mike, but I hope it's as nice as it is here.
It is not. It is in Toronto, Canada, where it is very cold. So we're waiting for spring to arrive here. It's not ideal.
Yeah, no, but I think other than that, man, I've just excited for what's happening with Real American Freestyle, and a lot of the stuff that's probably going on in the UFC that nobody really knows. It's been tricky, but go ahead, Mike. Ask away.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the match at RAF 06. Obviously, Urijah Faber, you get back on the mats. It's a local crowd and stuff. I mean, I know we had talked about this with you a little bit during the retirement fight week, and you played coy a little bit, but you always knew you were going to get back on the mats with RAF, right?
No, not really, actually. Not really. I can honestly say not really, man. I was never really. Man, I'm such a competitor, man, that I don't want to give a little bit of what I did with MMA, just kind of not fully what I was, but I see what Real American Freestyle's doing, and a guy like Izzy and Chad, and where they're trying to take the sport, and it seems like every Real American Freestyle is just outdoing every show that they have. I thought the first one that they ever had was like, man, that was amazing. I even called Chad. I was like, bro, how can I be a part of this? And I was just thinking like social content. And then New Year's Eve, I get a call. I'm over here shopping. I'm in Portugal shopping for my kids' toys, for Christmas Day the next day. And I get a call. Just like, you know what? There's probably something very important. So I call in as Chad, and then him and Izzy freaking start clotheslining me from both sides. Wrestling needs you. The sport would not be the same, because they know I'd bring the theatrics. And, I'm still fairly young, right? And they told me a little bit of their mission and their plan. I'm just like, I said, I'll call you back in a couple hours. I remember going back and just really thinking. It's like, man, we only have, I've always, I'm going to give half of my life to competing. The next is going to be, me, I guess doing business and spending time with my kids and whatnot. So it was just too good to be true, man. And I'm just like, you know what? The price was right. I says, let's do a Chattanooga because they're doing something that I've always imagined where wrestling could be, is giving a platform for these guys that are just, not everybody wants to fight. Not everybody has it to fight as good of a wrestlers that they could be. You know what I'm saying? You have to have that in. Like me, comes from a Mexican background. I grew up watching boxing. I grew up around, a little bit of that violence, which was normal to us. But not every wrestler really has that, and it's not in their culture. So I knew that wrestling could be something. And now, I mean, these guys don't have to. We can keep them in the sport. We can keep these guys, instead of going into mixed martial arts, keep them into wrestling, and bringing back more gold medals. I mean, to me, that's what really matters. I like UFC belts, but I like gold medals that much more.
Yeah, for the Americans, you're saying, right?
For the Americans, of course, man. But you know what, dude? I like a lot of Russians, man. Like, there's a lot of guys. I just respect anybody that puts it on the line. And to me, in my eyes, are the most competitive sport in the world, and that's wrestling.
Yeah,
And anybody will tell you that. It sounds crazy to say, but ask Cormier, ask John, ask a lot of these guys, Khabib. They will say, bro, there's nothing harder and more competitive than wrestling.
yeah, it's interesting because I asked Dana White the night you retired, like now that you're no longer active on the roster, the only Olympic medalist in the UFC is Kayla Harrison. Gable Steveson might be coming, but I was like, do you think if I had asked you this question 20 years ago, there's been like 3 Olympic gold medalists who have come through the UFC to fight here, like, would you think that's good? And he's like, I think it's respectable. Like, what do you think? Do you think that's good? Do you expect more Olympic level champions to be coming through the UFC at this point in the sport?
Sure, but this is what happens, Mike. When you win something so big, like I was sick and tired of competing.
Sure. You're still muted.
For
Oh, you're back.
I'm muted.
You're good now.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank Demetrius Johnson for that. I want to thank him for that damn knockout, because that knockout really put a chip on my shoulder. Like, man, I have close to about 1,000 wrestling matches, in my freaking, since I was born, and I'm just, I kind of somewhat sick of it, but he kind of put that chip on my shoulder. He said, "All right, man, now it's a mission." So then when that happened, it really did. But you know, it's good for the sport. Anybody that can win the Olympics and then come out and then do that, that's one of the hardest shit anybody could do, because you've already done it all. That's like chasing a second place medal. You know what I'm saying? Like for the UFC, like it's because it's not based on your popularity, that powerful right hand or matchmaking. You get there that day and you don't know who the hell you're going to compete, and then you got to perform in that day. And it's not every 4 years like everybody thinks. It's an everyday thing that everybody that we think about. It's really a childhood dream. But I'm surprised by Dana's comments on that. And but I will say this, man, it's super super hard. There's only been one guy that really do it, man, not woman, man, to really to go out there and actually compete and actually do it. That's me, man. And in the earlier games, we think of guys like Kevin Jackson, Mark Schultz, all those guys that came in. But bro, the sport was so new. If they had the resources of what we have now, the wrestling has dominated since the beginning of time. It wasn't jujitsu, man. That was Nobody knew what the hell was going on, and it was formatted where Hoist, he did his thing. He won. I'll give him that. But once the wrestlers came in, we didn't see Hoist no more.
Yeah. What about Gable Steveson? Can he follow in those footsteps? Do you think he can be that good? It seems like he has all the resources. He's putting himself around high level people. All the potential's there.
He could, man. He could. But my biggest thing with him is take your time. Like, I did amateur boxing prior to transitioning to MMA. Like, I won the copper gloves. I beat the golden gloves champ. This was like in the open division. This wasn't like in the first. Like, this was the open division. Like the best guys, Mexicans. I could not use my freaking wrestling or anything like that. And there's been a lot of world champions to come out of this city, and ended up beating him. So what I'm saying is, I told this to Gable. I saw him at Dirty Boxing. I'm like, Gable, take your time, bro. Fuck the White House. Like, forget all this stuff, dude. Like, you gotta you got to get better, man. You got to get better to continue to keep taking the right matchups in order for you to be the best, dude. Like, obviously he was cut from the WWE, he was cut from the NFL. It's like, dude, don't do this in mixed martial arts. Like, don't also buy into this hype of you beating these dudes and knocking them out, because I expect you to do that. But once you get into the UFC, you're with the big boys, and you got Tom Aspinall in front of you. You're gonna need a whole lot more than wrestling.
Yep, for sure. Was that your first time in like a wrestling competition like that since the Olympics, or am I forgetting something you've done over the past 10 years or
No,
so?
no, I did an exhibition in wrestling like in 2014, I believe, against the number one guy in the United States. It was Tony Ramos, and I almost beat him. I almost freaking beat him. I was beating the whole match, and I lost like in the last 5 seconds, I think. But I was so tired, bro, dude. I was putting it on him too. And then I remember Rich Bender, the executive director, is like, Henry, you still got it, man. Like if you decide you want to do this, you'll make the Olympic team. And I'm just like, Rich, I'm chasing another
I'm
mountain.
just,
I want to get paid, Rich. So
yeah, that's totally
yeah.
fair. So how did it feel? I mean, that's 12 years ago at this point, so pretty fresh. Like, I know you said it didn't feel quite the same, but still good enough to tech fall Uriah Faber, I guess.
Yeah, Uriah was strong, bro. I was trying to get on top of him, but he was like a barrel, dude. He was lit. I couldn't lock my hands. I'm like, even after the second round, I'm like, God, Lee, I was like, I can't reach my hands around you to turn you, bro. And he just like laughs. But it was fun, man. I want to give a big shout out to Uriah, man. Like, dude, he was a guy that really pioneered the sport of for us smaller guys, the
Mhm.
WEC days. Because I've been a fan of mixed martial arts since 2001. Since the first time I started renting these videotapes at Hollywood. It was a Blockbuster Hollywood videos, and we would rent them out as families. So we rented one, two, three. We just started kind of going up and just renting all of these, and we were into it as a family, man. You know what I'm saying? Like mom too was involved, and so it was cool. But then being able to see Uriah, in the early 2000s, what he was able to do, the California kid, and how he was able to be a great fighter, but also charismatic. I mean, that's the reason. Like, he's a big reason why they brought a lot of these lighter weight classes into the UFC, and I don't think he gets credit for that. So I told him that, and it just came out of my mouth like right after. I wasn't even thinking of saying anything or doing anything, but then right after the match, I'm like, Uriah, like. You're a big reason why you give us this opportunity, man. I just want to say thank you, bro. I love you, man. You know, and it was a Kodak moment.
No, I loved it. It was nice, you and your families with the kids and stuff. It was great. It was a nice, wholesome moment that we needed. But then it was right back to business. You faced off with Merab. You have this match set April 18th in Philly, RAF 08. I don't know. How are you looking at this? Is this some
No,
revenge? Is it
this
just fun or?
Of course, revenge. No, fuck the fun. I'm here to get my W back. He picked me up. He picked me up, saved me from the fire, and I'm looking to do the same thing for him come April 18th, man. And plus, I like Merab, dude. Like Merab, he's a showman, and he gets it. But the simple fact that when they said, "Hey, we're signing Merab," I'm like, "Give him to me." Like, give him to me. I always wanted to fight him. I always wanted to fight him clean slate, like being healthy in my prime. And I think now we get a chance to kind of grapple, do whatever. And he's tough. I'm not taking Merab lightly. I know he's not taking me lightly. So it's time to square off and squabble. There's a lot of good things that are coming in with RAF. A lot of signings, a lot of wrestlers, former fighters that are trying to get in there to actually compete and wrestle and get back to the sport.
Yeah, I love what they're doing. It seems like the perfect recipe. The fact that UFC is playing ball and allowing people under contract to do it too is awesome. So this seems to all be trending in the right direction. And yeah, I love this match between you and Merab. How different is Merab's grappling game with no strikes, no being able to push someone against the fence, like straight wrestling? Do you think he can
Yeah,
hang at all?
no, I think he's doing it right, man. Because I know Peter's out for quite some time from what I've heard. I don't think
Mhm.
he'll be back until like maybe towards the end of the summer,
Yeah.
from what the birdies are hearing. So I think Merab's doing the right thing, wrestling and just competing on that one base because he's not going to beat him with the striking. He's going to beat him with the wrestling. So what he's doing is I told him, I was like, hey man, you're doing the right thing, man, especially competing with me because he knows he's going to have to be ready for that. But there's one thing that he does have is just that fucking cardio. And that felt it with Uriah too, and so did he. I could hear Uriah breathing, dude. But it's good for him. It's good for me. It's good for the brand. I think the fans win this fight. The fans win this match.
Yeah. What was this thing you collabed with Craig Jones? Is this something you're wanting to do, or is this just fun between you and him?
Yeah, it's just fun, man. Craig Jones will bend the knee, triple silver. You kidding me, dude? I have him freaking doing some nasty things to me if we wrestled.
Yeah. And the other big storyline that came out of this was the Arman brawl with Georgio. They've already booked a rematch for Hype FC next week in Brazil. Did RAF kind of miss an opportunity, or did these guys maybe do them wrong by not saving the rematch for this promotion? Or to settle their beef, do we need like the submission element of it?
Yeah, I called Georgio. I'm actually the one that convinced Chad was thinking about doing Armin and Georgio. And I'm just like, man, that's a really good idea. So then I called Georgio. I'm like, Georgio, you got to take this wrestling match, bro. I was on the phone with him. He put his agent, Andy, on the line. He was just talking. I'm just like, listen, this dude is going viral with this content. He's becoming one of the most popular guys in the UFC. I'm like, steal that shine from him if you could beat him. And I do believe that you're stylistic. You could do that. So then he's like, you're right. And I was able to convince him to actually take the match because remember, what he's protecting his brand. Take me down, win $1,000. I'm like, yeah, bro. But I think when you put your balls on the line like you just did this Saturday, like it'll all make sense. Like more people will know about you. So, it was something that that I've been able to kind of help put together. And I spoke to Georgio yesterday, and I wasn't expecting him to do this whole hype thing. Um, now he's going to Brazil, and then Hamza's gonna be there. Like, bro, answer my call. You better have security with you, and don't take your dad. So that was one of the things that I'm just like, bro, like it can get dangerous, man. You're in a foreign country, you can disappear, and nobody knows. You know what I'm saying? So I am a little, um, how can I say?
Nervous for him?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. He came down to train out here with my brother's club. Like he was training here. I had a chance to work out with them one time. I like Arman too, man. So I don't want you guys to think I'm Team Giorgio either. Like I like them both. I like what they're doing for real American freestyle. I'm just here to watch these guys compete and give back to the sport, man. So, but now the ball's on Arman's. Now it's who knows, man. It might end up in another brawl. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I hope for Arman's case not, because everyone was saying, after that happened, like, look at Arman, he can't control his temper. Once again, like creating a moment. Did he just screw this up for everyone? But it seems like the UFC is not too mad. Maybe this actually helped him if they're letting him do this again. And apparently Hunter Campbell, he told Larry Helwani on Monday, told Arman, like, keep doing what you're doing. This is all good stuff. So I don't know.
Was Hunter on Ariel?
No, Arman was.
Oh, okay. I was just like, damn, times have changed.
No,
out of the loop.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, do you think Arman, is he trending in the right direction? Like, does he have a chance at getting the winner of Ilya versus Justin, or this weekend Max Charles?
Yeah, that's a question where we gotta really. That's a question we really gotta. I don't know, man. I think what may end up happening. I think this is what I think is probably likely going to happen. This is just me. I think they're skipping Ian Gary now. You know what I'm saying? I can't hear you, Mike.
Oh, you can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh yeah, I welterweight though, right?
I think they're gonna do. I think they're gonna do Ilya Taporia versus Islam Makachev, and then I think they might do Justin Gaethje versus Arman, and then that's what's kind of or unless it did McGregor, against Islam Makachev. That's the only thing, the scenario that I can think of. But I mean, if these guys don't understand, like, dude, the Paramount has really changed a lot of things, and it's becoming more entertainment. Who could sell?
Yeah. Do you think? Well, let's just ask you now. Dana White's getting the announcement coming this week. What's your prediction for the main event of UFC White House?
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, they're just gonna move everything around. So I think it would make sense. I'm gonna have to say the main event is probably gonna be Pereira Jones. And I hope Jones gets ready. I'm gonna send him a message now. And then co-main event's probably gonna be Ilya versus uh the hell's
Islam.
Islam. And then we
Oh,
got the co-main event. It's gonna be Arman and Justin Gaethje. And I
oh
think
wow.
I think they'll probably do Mackenzie Dern and Zhang Wei Li.
What do you
If
think,
I'm thinking,
Kayla and Amanda?
I
Or
don't
is
know if
Kayla
Kay,
not
I don't know
ready?
if Kayla's ready, man. I don't know if
Yeah,
Kayla's
it
ready for
worries
that.
me. I don't want her to rush back. I'm kind of scared of this neck thing for her.
Yeah, which was crazy because she was saying a bunch of stuff, and then all of a sudden she pulls out the next day. Which, I mean, an injury like that, I mean, her. Which I don't know, man. It's gonna be, I think that'll be a good one, but I don't know what's gonna happen there. So yeah, maybe. What did I say? 4 fights?
Yeah, four
Yeah,
titles.
no, yeah, I made five so far. So then there's two more. So then
Yeah.
I think uh Bo Nickel and Kobe might go at it and catch me what people are saying. I do believe that. And then the last one, I think they got to throw in Michael Chandler in there. See you at the top.
Yeah.
I like
I like the King Green call out of Chandler. I think
I,
that'd be fun.
yeah, I like that. But I think you want to, obviously, he's America's sweetheart, so you want to give him a winnable fight. And who knows,
Sure.
maybe Bobby Green might be that guy. But Bobby Green's tricky, bro. If you can't take him down, he's good on his feet.
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Okay, Henry, before I get you out of here, of course, we do have UFC 326 on Saturday, BMF title on the line in the main event. How are you leaning at this point of fight week in Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira?
Yeah, I think Max. I think Max is he's too fundamentally solid. And sometimes I feel like Charles just makes too much mistakes. He's too. Let's fight. Like bring it on. Point down. I'm going. I think Mac tactically is just a little wittier than that. So and he's just keeps it on his feet. There's 1-2s. He moves laterally. Like this is and where the straightforward opponent in Oliveira just comes forward, likes to clinch. But I think if he's able to take it there, I think Charles is able to take him down. Like his takedowns are actually underrated. He has a beautiful double leg.
What do you think? I mean, the loser of this, I think, or the winner, they're in a good spot. What about the loser? Like, does this hurt their legacy in any ways? This is a very special fight. Most combined UFC wins in a single fight between these two, 47, and then all sorts of other records these two have. Like, it feels like something special, but I feel like the loser doesn't get hurt too badly legacy wise. These guys feel pretty set.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess so. And it seems like it's pretty. It's a good fight, but it's a fight that people want to see. And who knows if somebody in that card comes unscathed, you got March, April, May, June, they can turn around and fight at the White House. Who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to see Max Holloway or Charles Oliveira fight at the White House? And I guarantee those guys are down.
Yeah.
So,
They're both mentioning Conor McGregor's name too, especially Max.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Max lost it, yeah, but he's not the same Conor McGregor. I think
Of
they want
course.
to give. They want to give. I mean, I would give Conor McGregor either a really big fight like Islam, or somebody that could potentially be the next champion to build. That Carlos Prates fight, what that was a rumor, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're good. They wanted Conor like executed, because Carlos Prates
The,
is way bigger, better striker, and what does Conor have to take him down?
Yeah, that makes you wonder what they're thinking with him because I know that was approach to Conor about that fight. I know last year they had approached him about fighting Shavkat, so they clearly have something in their mind that they want to do with Conor McGregor here. So we'll see how it pans out. He did an interview I think last night saying that he's in negotiations for the summer, so we'll see how this all plays out.
Okay, yeah, well, awesome. But that being said, I know as much as you guys. I'm not sure what's going on. Everything seems a little scattered right now with the UFC, so they
Yeah.
probably got something up their sleeve. But it's going the entertainment route, Mike. It's going the entertainment route. If they do everything that we're thinking more like is going to happen, so rankings are no longer going to matter.
Yeah, we'll see what the future holds. But I know you got a podcast to do with Kamaru Usman. Make sure you tell him, Henry, today, the 7-year anniversary of when Kamaru Usman beat Tyron Woodley for the UFC welterweight title at
Oh
UFC
wow,
239.
yeah, I was there. I was there for that one. That's awesome. I remind him.
Yeah, you guys are doing great things, man. Keep kicking ass, and we will talk to you soon, Henry. Appreciate your time.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
And here with the main event of today's show, it is Megan Olivi, UFC reporter and newly re-signed UFC reporter Megan Olivi. The announcement on Monday that you've signed a multi-year extension with the UFC. Congratulations. Just tell me a little bit about how this came together and how excited you are to finally have pen to paper.
Hey, thank you so much. And you've always been so nice about this through the entire process. It's been great. I feel so honored to be back and continue the role and to continue to grow the role that I've had for such a long time with the organization. And particularly at a time where we have this new deal with Paramount, and it's just become kind of like a new phase for the entire brand. It's been really awesome thus far, and to be able to just know that for several years this is going to be a partnership that we can develop and continue to evolve is just really exciting for me. And I mean, it's a family. We see everybody backstage. I mean, even my personal life, they saw Joseph fight for years. They know Vito now. And so it really is like a family, particularly with everyone behind the scenes. And so to be able to just continue that is such a blessing.
Yeah, was this a process for you? I mean, nothing in life is ever guaranteed. When it comes to contracts, like there's always some level of anxiety, but were you pretty confident through this process that things were going to get done?
I don't know if you're ever confident as a talent. I think there's always something about your job that feels like you have to earn it every day, and it's just never guaranteed. At least that's how I feel. And so I don't know if confident is the right word. I was hopeful, but I think I was also like, I don't know what's going to happen. They could decide they want to completely change things up. And that could be the direction they want to go. But I just felt like if I just continue to do my best work with every single outing, regardless of what the platform was or what the project was, then fingers crossed that they, it couldn't be denied. And they were like, we got to rehab Megan.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously the details you keep private, but like in terms of duties, is there anything that was added that we can expect you to maybe do that was out of your comfort zone or different than what we've seen you do in years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for the most part, our contracts are kind of all encompassing. And so you might have noticed, sorry about it's windy outside and I'm outside. You might have noticed that, I've already done some desk work for the first fight night on Paramount Plus. That desk work will continue in addition to the regular reporter role you see me on for all of the numbered events and the big shows. And so, it'll be a little more dynamic. And certainly with Paramount, we're just, and CBS, we're exploring new spaces. So I had the great opportunity to host a CBS special with Dee from Survivor. And so, I contractually for us, there's not really like a lot of specifics, like you're going to do X, Y, and Z. It's kind of all encompassing. But with this new partnership, the timing of the contract kind of lends itself already to new responsibilities and almost like experiments on what we're doing, what works, what doesn't. Do you fit into this role? Do you not? Do you like this role? Do you not? So it's a very cool time to have re-signed.
Yeah. Is there anything like that you're hopeful for, to like a role that you kind of see that maybe you feel you can fill or do more often or things like that?
No, it's I anything. I love working, and I humble brag, feel like I can sit in whatever seat and do a great job. I love hosting, particularly like the CBS show. I love hosting in that capacity. I would love to, kind of lend myself to maybe some CBS morning programming if that is available in terms of a co-host spot in the studio. Hopefully that's something that, we can work towards. But, I think also just expanding what you see from the reporter, which you might have noticed on the very first Paramount show of the year. We started with coach interviews in the locker room instead of a scripted locker room toss to break. And I think it went really well. I mean, I had Greg Jackson, and who's better than Greg Jackson to do the very first one? And so I think that kind of stuff is expanding. I love hosting in the studio and on site. That's really fun. The Becoming a Fighter podcast is coming back. So there's a lot of roles that I'm really enjoying being able to do. But I think, the partnership with CBS will lend itself to also maybe particular dreams that I've always had, like hosting a morning show, stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's been really cool. And I think that any role they offer me, I am willing and I think able to do as well.
What do you think of those locker room interviews? I thought they've been pretty good. The one on this past Saturday with Jason Perillo, while like Cheeto was getting his hands wrapped, I thought was a little interesting because it was almost like he was coaching Cheeto in the moment too, but like a little unique there. How do you feel about it? Because those moments, you know, there can be a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety in those rooms, and to cut through that, I imagine, can be challenging.
I might approach it differently than the other reporters in that role
Sure.
because of my experiences with Joseph.
Mm.
So, what I like to do is tell the coaches on Friday, hey, is this okay with you? This is what we're going to be doing. You know, if it's 2 questions, this is kind of how it's going to go. And then I like to try and get them out of the way as early as possible. A little bit for us in case there's a technical issue because TV wise, our comms don't work backstage in those areas. And so there's a lot that can go wrong for, you know, the actual broadcast. So it gives us a little bit of leeway in case something does go wrong. But also for me, I'm not trying to get in the way. You have a fight to focus on. You have a fighter to coach. Oftentimes, they have more than one fighter that they're preparing for the fight. And I don't want the athlete to ever feel like we're getting in their way. So for me, I check arrival times. Jimmy, my backstage producer, who, you know, is one of my closest pals and one of the best guys in the business, we're always like, when do they arrive? Let's go find them immediately. When can we fit this in to do it right away? I just approach it a little different because of my personal experience. And not that most fighters would ever be bothered by it, but I never want them to feel like, oh, well, I'm going out there in 15 minutes and this girl's coming in here and taking my coach away from me. It's the way, I don't know. It's just the way my brain is wired for having somebody in that exact position for so long.
Yeah. Is it tricky too? Because like there's only so much you can get out of a coach in that moment too, right? And I'm sure you're trying to get something of value to add to the broadcast, but is that always like maybe the biggest stress going in is like, I'm not just trying to get through this. I actually want there to be something productive to come from it.
Yeah, there's always that's the biggest stress always, right? But
Yeah.
even on the Friday weigh-in interviews, and you know you've been in that situation, is like they've been talked to a million times. I don't want this to be a waste of their time or a waste of the viewers' time. I want to get something. But I think the thing that's different from, again, for me maybe in the locker room is that I'm always trying to make it a positive question. So whatever I'm presenting to the coach, I never want it to be like a troublesome or a worrisome thought because the time for that's over. I'm not coming into their locker room to make this a what are you going to do about, I mean, he's been knocked out 3 times. What are you going to do? That's not my place because I'm not trying to bring that vibe to the locker room.
Sure.
That can be for somebody else. It's not for me. And so I always just approach it as like, how can I get the most out of this coach about the work that's been done? Because on Saturday they're warming up. They're not doing something life changing in that moment. All the work's been done. The fun part, you know, is about to happen. So it's more of like, how can I make sure it's a question that is right in that environment as athletes around are getting ready to fight? Because it's not just the fighter or the coach that I'm talking to. There's sometimes 2, 3, 4 other camps in that same room. And so I'm not trying to bring down anyone's pre-fight prep. I'm trying to elevate it. And so my line of questioning is always, how can I get something out of them in a positive manner about the preparation that they've done?
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, totally. As we go into UFC 326 this week, a unique kind of element of this broadcast is the final hour of the prelims and the first hour of the main card are going to be simulcast on CBS. Is this something like, you know, if you can talk about it early in the week, is there plans you're hearing? Is there going to be something special for the broadcast for this 2-hour block because it's CBS? Like, what are you kind of hearing in terms of that?
Yeah, there'll be some special things, some influx of personalities you might know from CBS. You'll see some familiar faces, but I love it because not just are you going to see some great fights and maybe recognizable faces and names that, you know, casual fans who might not tune in all the time might recognize or, you know, want to stay tuned in for. But also what I love is that they're going to see the pay-per-view, the numbered card open, the main card open, which I think is always compelling. The video features that play, the way John, Joe, and Daniel present the fights and why people should be excited about them. I think it's really great for your average sports fan to be engaged and find something they might like about our sport if they have been hesitant to tune in before. So I just think it's tremendous. We always have things up our sleeve. I'm excited to be, a part of that block and hopefully, lend myself to some positive reaction from that community that maybe is not necessarily involved with the sport, but I love it. And I think it's really, really smart. And hopefully it's a trend that continues.
Yeah, it's a great, idea, and we'll see what they kind of do. I've been, had a couple guests earlier on the show and we're talking about, Dana White said the White House announcements are coming this week. And I was like, what a spot that would be on CBS on network television to maybe announce something, but we'll see how that goes when they're ready.
I agree, because I was texting something. I've been pitching a lot of stuff for the White House. And I have this really cool thing and I texted about it, but then it's like, do we even know if this person's on the card? We don't know. So all of us are in limbo too. We're all kind of waiting as well.
Yeah. So you will be working the White House card. That's something that's already being presented.
I'm scheduled to. So yes, it's on the books. I am so unbelievably excited. Also being from a military family, it's just really special to do something in our nation's capital. And, for my grandfathers, my dad, my brother, my cousin, who's still active duty, to be able to, be a part of our nation's history and what makes our country so great. I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, but I'm already picturing you in my mind's eye of like when they're doing these walkouts allegedly from the Oval Office, you standing there as they walk behind you and stuff. Like this is
I got some fire American outfits as well already. Oh yeah, I love nothing more than to dress on theme. I always try to play that in a little bit, and I'm going like very literal for the White House show.
Yeah. Well, you said you don't know. None of us know the fights that are going to be confirmed right now. If you had to make a prediction, what's going to be headlining? I mean, we have is it John Jones versus Alex Pereira?
You're not getting me here, Mike Bohn. You're not getting me. I'm not saying a thing. I don't know. And if I did, I don't want it to be anything people can click on. I have no idea. I've heard rumors, but I'm not repeating them.
Okay. What do you, since it was in the news and it seems like it's trending this way, like the Alex Pereira vacating the title, John Jones saying he's in negotiations, nothing's over the finish line, but does this feel like something that has some momentum finally?
I mean, certainly when they announced the Miami main event, what else can you kind of think about? But I mean, then we say, well, what about Tom Aspinall? I mean, there's still a lot of factors in play for that. But I think when Miami was announced, it did lend itself to people being like, wait a second, what does that mean for June? Yeah. So it appears to be trending that way in terms of what is out there on the internet. In the building, I don't actually know. The fights that I've heard rumored are different than that, but that doesn't mean that's not happening. I just am not really involved in those types of conversations. I'm probably the last to know. For sure.
Okay, I won't press you too hard on that. We'll see, because it could be announced. Sorry, could be announced as we speak, so we won't spend too.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing is like I think also like, who's to know when we're even going to find out? And in this day and age, who's to say whatever's scheduled is what's going to make it across the finish line?
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's get into UFC 326 a bit here in this BMF title in the main event. Were you in Saskatchewan, Canada for this first fight back in 2015?
The thing is, I think I was.
I was.
But then I'm like, was I? I mean, my brain with these past events is mush.
Yeah.
So I think I was there, but also was I? I'm not sure. I don't know. If I wasn't there, I was definitely intently watching the fight because I didn't even need a refresher of what had happened in that one, even though it was so long ago. So yeah, who could know? Apparently someone knows, but it's not me.
Yeah, no, I firmly remember the Saskatoon event because there was just nothing to do in that city. And it was... Was that
the one that had like mini golf at the hotel? Where was that in Canada?
Oh, gosh.
I want to say that might have been a Cowboy headliner.
Ooh, that would have been maybe Vancouver then.
No, it wasn't Vancouver. No? It was somewhere random. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask Brandon Gibson.
Was it him versus Ally Quinta in Ottawa?
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
That could have been.
I think that's what it was. So maybe I wasn't in Saskatoon, but I watched.
I was there. I was one of the few who have been at both of these fights. It was a weird ending. Obviously, we've kind of seen what have happened. But these two guys, I mean, since then, become absolute legends, icons of our sport. I've mentioned a few times on the show, this fight, the most combined wins in a single UFC matchup ever with 47, and then all the other records these two have. But before we get into the fight itself, this is the 5th BMF title fight now. We've had this thing around for about 7 years. What are your thoughts as we stand now on the BMF belt?
I think it's so fun because if the fighters didn't buy into it, I think it would have to kind of go away or it'd be a hard sell. But the fighters love it. I mean, they actually, in our pre-fight interviews, there have been several times athletes will mention to us, well, after I win this fight, I want to fight for the BMF belt. So it's a real thing that gets them excited. And you know what? Anything that makes a fighter excited or gets them up for an opportunity, I'm going to support. And so they like it. I like it. I think it's fun. I love that, you know, we've done The Rock presenting it. We did Lil Wayne presenting it. Like, let's make it a thing. Not everything. This sport is so serious. This sport is such highs and such lows. But like, let's have a little bit of fun when we can, and I think this makes it fun.
No, totally. I think I'm going to take credit for starting the trend of the who should wrap the belt around the other person, because I think I've got it out of the people for like every single fight. I'm just pulling it up here what the actual list of the people who have done it is. Where are you? So we have The Rock did Jorge Masvidal in the first fight. Jorge Masvidal put it on Justin Gaethje in the second fight. Mark Coleman put it on Max Holloway at UFC 300, and then Lil Wayne for Max Holloway at UFC 318. I did ask Charles Oliveira in our interview last week who he wants to do it, and he said his father would be his top choice just because he means so much to him. And
and he's actually traveling to Las Vegas.
Yes, so that makes sense. We'll see who Max's choice is, but I wonder maybe he'll do his wife or something, just because that feels more in tone with the family theme here.
Right. Well, obviously, I will say I'm so bitter. Lil Wayne is my favorite rapper ever, and I was on maternity leave when he was at that event. I was so pissed. But in terms of Vegas, I mean, if we need like a celebrity to do it, I mean, there's no shortage of celebrities here. We've got the hockey players. I mean, we've got gold medalists from the Golden Knights. I mean, there's a lot that could happen. That could be fun.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see who Max's choice is. I'll ask him at Media Day on Wednesday. But
I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. But the Max Holloway, this is his third fight now since kind of recommitting to this move up. He had the Ilya fight in between, but like, what's your sense of him since he's dedicated himself full time to being a lightweight now?
I've just got to tell you, I love it. And this is, you know, and I'm sure you feel this way too. Oftentimes it is very difficult to observe certain fighters during fight week and the massive amounts of weight that they cut, or just the difference in their, not just appearance, but the way their personality is able to shine through the hunger and the thirst. And, you know, sometimes we were really worried about certain athletes, and Max might have been one of them. To see him move up, I just feel like what a great version of himself. Not that he wasn't at 45, certainly a dominant champion for a long time, but to have him look so healthy and happy, I think is great. And he's proven that he's just fine at 55. It's this old narrative that sometimes I think some people stay stuck to of, well, you have to be a weight bully, or I might be small if I move up, or maybe, but you'll be healthy and you'll have a training camp where you're able to actually train hard and not so much focus on the caloric intake or how much weight you're losing, but instead sharpening your skills and having the energy to game plan and do what is needed to be your very best. I just think the benefits far outweigh the negatives. And I love seeing Max at 55. I think he looks tremendous. I think he feels tremendous. And I think it only furthers his career and it only extends it, in my opinion.
And then Charles, I mean, like, we've seen so many iterations of this guy. It's been incredible. And everyone was writing him off after he lost to Topuria, saying he's done. We questioned his quick turnaround to fight in Brazil. Everyone said it was a bad idea. He looked unbelievable. And here he is going to be with his second fight since losing to Ilya. And we have not seen Ilya back yet, which is pretty amazing. But like, you know, the Charles Oliveira journey has been a special one, but coming into this fight, he's got some momentum back. He's wanted this rematch for a long time. Like, what's kind of your sense on where he is going into Saturday?
Yeah, and rightfully so about the rematch, because, you know, it's almost like that fight didn't happen.
It was weird.
Right? It was so quickly into that first round. They were so young. They're such different athletes. This is something I'm going to talk about extended on the broadcast. But, for Charles, I know he wanted it back because it's almost like it didn't even happen. I mean, it was such a freak accident, and such a short amount of time, he didn't even get to really show anything either. And so he's in great spirits. I mean, the thing I hate about this fight is someone will not get their hand raised, and that's going to break my heart, because for those of us that work so closely with both of these athletes, they are tremendous men. And to know that they've worked so hard for not just the hand raise on Saturday night, but what the hand raise can evolve into in terms of steps at 155. It's going to be so much joy for the victor, and heartbreak for whoever does not get that hand raise. And so I just think that they're both in really great mental places, and I think Charles is just so happy. You're right. We've seen so many iterations of him. We've seen him in very different places in his life. We've seen him in different weight classes. We've seen him, in all different kinds of spots. But it seems like, to me, mentally, this might be the best we've ever seen him. He's got his son. There's so much for him to fight for. And I think having obtained gold and knowing what that feels like and what it took to get there, but also just what it does and does not mean for his life, is also really important as well.
Yeah, these two, I mean, the style clash is incredible. And like you said, that first fight, very weird. This is how weird that first fight was. Dr. D, who never speaks publicly, went on the record and gave us a Charles Oliveira injury update the morning after that, and talked about the torn esophagus and stuff. And I think that's the only time in his 20 plus years with the UFC that he's gone on record and talked about a fighter injury. So that goes to show.
Except when he sent me out there with a message about Pantoja. Anyway, to be discussed later. Dr. D's the best. I love him.
Yes, for sure. So I mean, these two guys, very interesting. What goes through your mind when we get to the final 10-second point down in a Max Holloway fight? Do you think this one gets there? I mean, I don't know. This feels like it has the recipe to maybe not go 5 rounds to the end, but if it does, what does that stir up inside of you?
Selfishly, I hope it gets there. Yeah. Do I actually think it gets there? I don't. No. But selfishly, let's go, because the two of them, I mean, they've already both said, we're gonna do this. If Charles is looking forward to it, if Max pointing down, he's willing to be in that dance. And of course we know that Max is ready, willing, and able to do that as well. I think it would be historic. I think it would just make the whole night, and for MMA fans and everything that we love about the sport, I think it would be exactly what we imagine. But do I think it gets there? Maybe not necessarily. Do you?
I mean, a Charles Oliveira fight, betting on that to go to a 5-round decision feels like a big hope. I mean, there's a reason he's got the most finishes in UFC history. And yeah, my big question going into this fight is just who takes damage better at this point in their career. Oliveira's, been knocked out several times, but he does not deter him from fighting his style. And then, Max Holloway, it's the elephant in the room. He's landed the most strikes in UFC history, but he's also absorbed the most in UFC history. And finally, we saw him go down against Ilya. I don't know how much of that was, weight cut and you're taking away something from your chin, but these guys are, warriors for a reason. And I just don't know if they can hold up damage the way they fight each other for 5 rounds.
No, absolutely. And I'm also curious how much of this is going to take place on the feet. How much is Charles going to try and take this to the canvas? How much is, Max has great takedown defense numbers. There's just so much. Again, it's why we love it. It's why, this is what we do for a living. And it's why people continue to tune in for these matchups, because we really don't know what's going to happen. But good thing I have never placed a sports bet in my life and couldn't, but I just don't think that it would see the final 10 seconds, which means it probably will, because I said that.
yeah, that's usually how it goes. Lastly, on this fight, what do you think is at stake here with these guys? Obviously the BMF belt, but they both want that undisputed lightweight title again. They both have the losses to Ilya. I've seen Arman out there in the past couple of days saying he had to sit down with Hunter Campbell, and one of the options potentially discussed was fighting the winner of this fight. We'll see who Ilya ends up fighting. Does he go up to welterweight? Does he defend? If Justin Gaethje needs to fight someone else, would it be one of these guys?
Right.
There's multiple scenarios in play here. So what do you feel like these guys are kind of fighting for besides that BMF belt?
So for me, I just feel like the situation at 155 is so fluid. I think if you would have asked us in the fall of 2025, our expectation for where the division would be in March of 2026, I'm not sure if we would have thought it would kind of be in this scenario with an interim title and with, unsure of when the champion is defending again. So I really don't know, but I do know that it's important because the step forward has got to be taken. There's, what is Justin Gaethje going to do? Like you mentioned, Arman, there's so many players in the scenario that it it could be a long time for the person who is not victorious to find themselves back in a scenario that gets them close to a title because there's a log jam. There's a lot of talent, there's up and coming talent, and there's a lot of people who want their shot. And if one of these former champions does not, deliver on Saturday night, it might be, much longer than a year until they're able to put their name back into the mix.
Yeah, the one interesting option that I didn't mention there is Conor McGregor, potentially. Max Holloway telling TMZ he's interested in that fight. Conor McGregor did an interview in the past day or two saying he's in negotiations for a summer fight. I don't know, like Conor fighting for the BMF belt just kind of seems like an appropriate fit if you're trying to get him to fight for some version of a title. So does that
Sure.
pique your interest, either of these guys against Conor?
For sure. I just think, can Conor make 155? I know he can make he can make any
He could do
weight.
it
I
at
know
170.
we saw his
It's the BMF.
right, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. There's no rules.
Yeah.
Whatever. We make our own rules. But yes, I think that would be incredibly interesting. And I think it's still a name. It's probably the number one name that resonates with the MMA fans to this day is Conor McGregor. And I think that would also pull in a lot of eyeballs, and whoever you put him against, it's a tremendous platform for them. So I would love to see, Max or again, Max or, Charles get that opportunity.
Yeah. And last thing on UFC 326, the co-main here between Renier de Ridder and Kyle Baralho. Renier's been talking a lot about how terrible the weight cut in Vancouver was, and how he just wasn't himself, would have lost to anyone, and he's trying to be a better version here. You covered the Vancouver event, and you talked a little bit about how we see these guys. Like, do you recall Renier being in particularly tough shape in that week?
I think some guys are better than others at hiding it, but I also think it's not just those days that lead up to Friday for the weight cut. I think you could tell he was exhausted in like his whole being. And that is because, again, you're monitoring your caloric intake, which means you're training as hard as possible on very little food. And those things take a toll, and it just continues to build. It continues to add up from week to week to week as you prepare for a fight. I think that oftentimes we can see when an athlete is overworked, overtrained, maybe undernourished, or they're just having a rougher time with weight cuts. I mean, that's the thing also about working with these athletes over and over again. We can almost tell when they walk into the room for fighter meetings, like, oh, they're having a better cut than they did last time. Or, hey, you know what? We don't even have to say it to each other between John Daniel and I. When they walk in the room, if we think that they might be struggling or their energy would be best served placed elsewhere, we're done with those questions. That stuff can come later. We can talk to them at the ceremonials. Like, it is not worth their time and energy to answer some questions for us when they could be resting or using, those energy fuels to, do their final push or whatever it might be. So yeah, I definitely think that he is a different and better version of himself this week than he was that week we saw him in Canada, for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that fight plays out. We're speaking of the weight,
Me too.
we're coming up on in June. It'll be 10 years since they switched to the morning weigh-in. In terms of like having, what is now the ceremonial weigh-in be the actual weigh-in. Do you think that change has helped the weight cutting process? Like, has that been a very beneficial move to the sport now that we have 10 years of time to reflect on it?
I love it. I think that the opinion between athletes is a little bit split, but I think it's great. I have seen just a bigger difference. It's almost, and it almost gives them as people, in my opinion, a better platform as well, because we would be talking to them right off the scale for these massive broadcasts, and they they have weight cut voice, which is, when they get a really soft, hoarse voice because they haven't drank anything. But they're also not able to really think rationally or give a lot of thought into their answers, because the first thing on their mind is food and drink. And so I also think not only has it given them a better standard for the weight cuts and for the way they approach them, but also when you are competing on a numbered event, it gives your personality, your brand, a better opportunity to shine, because you've had hours and hours and hours to refuel, to sleep, to relax, to be with your friends and family, and then go to ceremonials. I think it's been day and night for interviews. I think it's day and night for the broadcast that we're able to bring to fans and that the athlete is able to present themselves in. And I do think it has been better for their health overall as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm gonna try to work on like a bigger story about all this and just kind of talk to some different people in corners of the sport and see if that's been a thing. Because now they're trying to adjust it further, right, to make it the 2-hour window into the 1 hour and like all regions and stuff like this. So we'll see how.
Yes.
All right, Megan.
Yeah, that can still be tricky, as you know, with different rules in different places, for sure.
Yeah, as it is with our crazy sport. All right, Megan, I've taken enough of your time today. Congratulations again on the new deal. I'm so happy for you. I think everyone is grateful to see you around for many more years to come. So I will see you out there in Las Vegas this week, and looking forward to seeing your work as always.
Can't wait. Thank you so much, Mike.
And that does it for another edition of the Bohnfire podcast. Thanks so much to Oscar, to Henry, to Megan for their time. A stack show here today with a lot of different things hit on, but of course, mostly centered around UFC 326, which goes down Saturday. I will be there, as mentioned previously, in Las Vegas. Coverage here on the channel, coverage over on MMA Junkie coming from me. Looking forward to seeing Holloway and Oliveira. The rest of the card, not the best we've seen. Most certainly a pretty weak numbered event in all honesty, but this main event, man, it's as good as you can ask for. Two icons of the sport. Not going to be too many times, I reckon, that we continue to get these guys in a big spot like this. And as I said, a historic matchup in terms of the win, all the numbers these guys bring in. So I think once Holloway and Oliveira in that octagon, the rest of the card being a little mid is not going to bother us too much, but that is my optimistic outlook. But as I said, I will be there providing the coverage all week, and appreciate everyone tuning into the show today. Once again, appreciate my guests, and until next time, I will see you all back here by the Bohnfire.